The salvage ship Silverwing drifted quietly above a broken moon. The moon was old, scarred, and hollowed by centuries of mining and war. Its surface looked like cracked glass, with giant canyons cutting across its face. Every race that had once touched it had left something behind: ruins, machines, forgotten memories. For most, it was a place to avoid. For salvagers, it was a place of opportunity. Ren moved carefully through the wreckage with a scanner in his hand. His boots pressed down on gray dust that had not been disturbed for years. Around him stretched a field of collapsed towers and shattered domes. The air was thin and poisonous, but his suit kept him alive. His crew worked in other sectors, leaving him to explore this lonely section alone. The silence was heavy. No birds, no wind, no sound at all except the faint crackle of his radio. Ren had visited many ruins before, but this one felt different. The walls carried marks that looked less like damage and more like scars. The architecture was strange too, with sweeping lines and tall frames shaped in ways no other race used. It felt like stepping into the bones of something ancient. His scanner beeped once, a sharp sound in the quiet. A signal flickered on the display, faint but clear. Ren frowned. It was not metal, not fuel, not machinery. It was biological. Something alive was here. His heart jumped as he followed the signal deeper into the ruins. The path led him into a wide hall where beams of pale light fell through holes in the ceiling. Dust floated in the air, glowing softly. At the far end of the hall, among broken stone and twisted metal, something moved. Ren raised his light and froze. It was a girl. She was small, thin, and strange to his eyes. Her skin had a soft silver tint, and her hair was pale like frost. Her eyes were wide and filled with fear. She wore a torn garment of woven cloth that had once been fine, now ragged. Around her neck hung a collar, half broken, glowing faintly with blue light. She pressed one hand against it as if protecting it from the world. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Ren's breath caught in his chest. He had seen many species in his travels, but never one like this. The girl did not speak. She only stared at him, ready to run, yet too weak to move fast. Ren slowly lowered his scanner and lifted his hands in peace. "I will not harm you," he said gently. He knew she would not understand his words, but tone mattered. His voice was calm, steady, without threat. The girl tilted her head. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She tried again, but only silence followed. Ren realized she could not speak. She was mute. He stepped closer, carefully, like approaching a frightened animal. His boots crunched on the dust. The girl flinched but did not run. Instead, she clutched the collar tighter. Ren's eyes followed the faint blue glow. The collar was not just decoration. It looked like technology, maybe a translator, maybe a marker. Whatever it was important to her. Ren felt a surge of protectiveness. She was alone here, in this dead place. She looked like the last flame in a world of ashes. Behind him, his radio crackled. One of his crew asked if he had found anything useful. Ren did not answer. He kept his eyes on the girl. He knew if he called the others, they would see her as salvage, as something to sell. He could not let that happen. He slowly reached into his pack and pulled out a small ration bar. He unwrapped it and placed it on the ground between them, then stepped back. The girl's eyes followed every movement. She hesitated, then crawled forward and took the bar with trembling hands. She sniffed it, tasted it, and then ate quickly, almost desperately. Ren's chest tightened at the sight. How long had she been starving here? When she finished, she looked up at him again. Her expression had changed. The fear in her eyes softened, just a little. She touched the collar and then pointed at him. She seemed to be asking something, though he could not guess what. Ren crouched down, keeping his movements slow. He pointed to himself. Ren, he said. He tapped his chest again. Ren. The girl watched him closely. Her lips moved, forming a soundless word. She touched her chest, then the collar. No voice came, but the meaning was clear enough. She was trying to tell him her name, but silence held her back. Ren felt a heavy weight settle inside him. Whatever her name was, he could not hear it. The collar glowed faintly again, as if it held the secret she could not speak. The hall around them felt even more silent now. Dust drifted through the pale light, and far away, something groaned deep within the ruins. Ren knew his crew would soon call him again, asking what he had found. He knew if they came here, they would see the girl not as a person, but as a prize. He made his choice in that moment. He would not leave her here. He would not hand her over. Whatever her story was, whatever secrets her collar carried, she was alive. And that mattered more than salvage. Ren reached out his hand, palm open, waiting. The girl hesitated, then slowly placed her small hand in his. Her skin was cool, almost like smooth stone, but warm enough to remind him she was alive. For the first time since he had stepped into the ruins, Ren felt he was not standing in a tomb, but at the beginning of something larger. He did not know what the collar meant. He did not know what danger this choice would bring. But he knew one thing clearly. He would protect her. And with that silent promise, he lifted the alien girl into his arms and began the walk back through the broken moon. The silver wing cut across the stars with a low hum, leaving the broken moon behind. Its engines glowed blue, carrying the salvage crew back to orbit. Inside the ship, the halls were narrow and lined with patched metal, the smell of oil mixed with recycled air. It was not a proud vessel, but it was steady, and it kept its crew alive. Ren walked slowly down the main corridor, carrying the alien girl in his arms. She had fallen asleep against his shoulder, her head resting lightly, her small frame wrapped in a blanket he had taken from the supply locker. Her breathing was shallow but steady. She had eaten more food once they reached the ship, then collapsed in exhaustion, as if her body had been holding on for far too long. When Ren reached the crew quarters, he stopped. There were 6 bunks lined in 2 rows, the space crowded with storage crates. His crew would return here soon. If they saw the girl, there would be questions he was not ready to answer. He turned instead toward the medical bay. The bay was small, but it had clean sheets and working scanners. Ren laid the girl gently on the cot. She stirred for a moment but did not wake. The collar around her neck glowed faintly, as if aware of its new surroundings. Ren brushed some dust from her hair and stepped back, his mind racing. The radio crackled. "Ren, report," came the voice of Bran, the first officer. "You were in Sector 6. Did you find anything worth keeping?" Ren pressed the radio to his lips. "Nothing stable. Most of the structure is collapsing. I'll keep checking the scans later." He turned the volume down before Bran could answer again. He looked back at the girl. Her silent face seemed fragile, yet the faint lines on the collar hinted at something powerful. She was more than just a lost child. She was carrying something important, though he could not yet understand it. Ren pulled up the scanner display. He swept it over her body carefully, not to harm but to learn. The readings came back unusual. Her biology was unlike anything in the database. She was humanoid but different enough that the system marked her as unknown. The collar, however, lit up the display. Energy signals pulsed within it, forming patterns that seemed almost like language. Ren leaned closer. The symbols on the collar glowed brighter when he touched the scanner near them. They were delicate and curved, unlike any script he had seen before. He tried the universal translator, but the system failed to recognize the pattern. It spat out empty results. The girl opened her eyes. For a moment she looked frightened, then calmer when she saw him. She tried to speak again, her lips moving, but no sound came. She touched the collar and then touched her chest, as if asking him to understand. Ren crouched beside her. "I am listening," he said softly. He pointed at the collar, then at himself, and shrugged, showing he did not understand yet. The girl frowned, then began to trace shapes in the air with her finger. Her motions were slow, deliberate. Ren realized she was trying to write without words. The symbols looked like the ones glowing on the collar, but he could not read them. He shook his head, frustrated by his own limits. The girl's eyes lowered, sadness filling them. She curled up slightly, holding the collar with both hands as if it were the last piece of her world. Ren felt a pang in his chest. She was trying to reach him, trying to beg him to understand, but she had no voice and no language that matched his. He thought about calling the crew for help, but he knew what would happen. Bren and the others would see profit. An unknown alien meant attention from buyers, from governments, maybe from pirates. The girl would not be safe. Ren reached for his pack and pulled out a small slate. He drew simple pictures on it: a circle for the moon, a square for the ship, a stick figure for himself. He then drew another figure with long hair, meant to be her. He pointed to the figure of himself, then to the figure of her, then to the ship. He smiled, trying to show her they were together now. The girl studied the drawings, then looked back at him. She touched her chest again, lips moving silently. Her eyes filled with a quiet strength, a plea without words. Ren did not need a translator to understand that look. She was asking for safety. She was asking for trust. He nodded slowly. "You are safe here," he said, even if she could not hear the meaning. His tone was steady, a promise spoken in his voice if not in her language. The girl reached out and placed her hand on his arm. Her fingers were cool, but her touch was deliberate. She looked into his eyes, searching for something, and then seemed to relax just a little. For the first time since he had found her, Ren felt the weight of her silence. It was not only the silence of one child. It felt larger, heavier, as if she carried the silence of an entire people. That thought tightened his chest. The ship jolted as the crew finished docking procedures. Ren heard footsteps in the hall, heavy boots returning from the surface. Voices echoed as the others laughed and argued about what they had found. The noise felt too loud, too careless. Ren stood quickly and dimmed the lights in the medical bay. He whispered to the girl, "Stay here, do not move." He stepped into the corridor just as Bren turned the corner. Bren was tall and broad, his suit stained with dust. "Ren," he said, raising a brow. "You disappeared on the scanners. Find anything good?" Ren shook his head. "Just empty halls. Nothing stable enough to take. I came back early." Bren frowned but let it go. "Shame. The rest of us didn't find much either." Maybe next run will be better. He clapped Ren on the shoulder and walked past toward the mess hall. Ren watched him go, his jaw tight. He returned to the medical bay, closing the door behind him. The girl was still on the cot, watching him closely. He smiled faintly. They do not know, he whispered. And they will not know. The girl reached again for the collar. The faint blue glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ren felt certain the collar was more than a symbol. It held her story, maybe her people's story. She wanted him to understand, but that understanding was locked behind a language only she could carry. Ren sat by her side. I will not give you away, he said. Whatever this is, I will protect it. The girl's eyes softened. She leaned back against the pillow, still holding the collar, and let her eyes close once more. Ren stayed awake beside her, the hum of the ship filling the silence. For the first time, he realized his mission had changed. He was no longer searching for salvage. He was guarding a life. And though he could not yet understand her voice, he felt her silent plea inside his heart as clear as words. The silver wing moved through the quiet lanes of space. Stars glimmered outside its windows, distant and cold. Inside the ship, the crew settled into their usual rhythm after a salvage run. Some cleaned their gear, others traded jokes, and Bran made a list of what they could sell once they reached the nearest station. Ren stayed apart from them. He sat in the small medical bay beside the alien girl. She was awake again, her pale silver skin glowing faintly in the light. She still held the broken collar around her neck as if it were the most important object in the universe. Ren leaned forward, studying the faint blue symbols that ran along the collar's surface. They seemed to shift when he stared at them too long, like water rippling in a stream. His scanner had failed to translate them, but he could not let go of the feeling that there was something familiar about the shapes. The girl watched him closely. When his gaze stayed on the collar, she touched it and then looked at him with a steady, pleading expression. She wanted him to see, to understand. Ren sighed and set up a portable reader on the table. He aimed its sensors at the collar. The machine projected a copy of the symbols into the air above them. The girl sat up, her eyes widening as she saw the glowing script take shape. She touched the projection, tracing the shapes with her fingers. Then she pointed at Ren, then at the symbols, her lips moving without sound. You want me to read this, Ren said softly. His voice was calm, though he knew she could not understand his words. Still, tone carried meaning. The girl nodded, her eyes shining. Ren rubbed his forehead. He had studied many alien scripts before, but this one was unlike any of them. The lines were curved yet sharp, like music frozen into shapes. He began to copy the symbols onto his slate, trying to break them into patterns. He noticed that some marks repeated in rhythm, almost like a song. He fed the symbols into his linguistics program. The program searched through human languages and alien ones, comparing, testing, but the results came back empty. No match. Ren leaned back, frustrated. Then something strange happened. The more he looked at the symbols, the more his mind began to form connections on its own. It was not the machine that translated but his own thoughts. The shapes reminded him of old human alphabets, ones barely used anymore. Not exact, but close enough to stir recognition. He whispered a sound, testing one of the marks. The girl's eyes widened. She nodded eagerly and tapped the same mark in the air. Ren tried another, stumbling through the strange rhythm. Again, she nodded, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. He froze. This is for us, he whispered to himself. This was written for humans to read. The girl pressed her hands together in front of her chest as if in prayer. Then she pointed at him, then at the script again. She could not speak, but her meaning was clear. He was the one who could give voice to the words she carried. Ren worked through the night, reading symbol after symbol, sounding them out, shaping them into words. Slowly, painfully, a message began to appear. The first lines spoke of a people once strong, spread across the stars. They had built towers of light, filled the skies with song, and lived in harmony. But then came silence. Their enemies destroyed their voices, hunted them, broke their cities until only ruins remained. Ren's heart pounded as he read. These were not just records. They were cries for help, etched into the collar of a child. He looked at the girl. Her eyes glistened with tears. She touched his hand, urging him to continue. The next line spoke of a burden. The last survivors had placed fragments of their memory into the genes of their children. Each child carried a part of the story, so that even if their voices were lost, their truth would remain hidden in their blood. The girl must have been one of those chosen carriers. Ren felt a chill. The collar was not just decoration or a translator. It was a key, meant to guide the right people to unlock the memories. And somehow, that right person was not any alien race in the galaxy. It was him. A human. He read until his voice grew hoarse. The final symbols he managed to translate that night carried a plea, to those who will not turn away. Protect the last flame. Carry our silence into the future. Ren set the slate down with trembling hands. He could not speak for a long moment. The girl was watching him, waiting. He whispered, "I understand." The girl closed her eyes and let out a silent breath, as if she had been holding it for years. She leaned against the cot, her hand still clutching the collar, but her body relaxed for the first time. She trusted him now, fully. The hum of the ship grew louder as the Silver Wing continued on its course. Outside the medical bay, the crew laughed and argued, unaware of the truth resting in their ship. To them, it was just another salvage run, another chance at profit. To Ren, everything had changed. He stood and looked at the stars through the small round window. The words from the collar echoed in his mind. Protect the last flame. He had found her in silence, in ruins left to crumble. Now he carried not only her life but the memory of an entire people. It was more than salvage, more than discovery. It was a responsibility that weighed heavier than anything he had carried before. Ren turned back to the girl. She had drifted into sleep again, her face calm at last. The faint glow of the collar pulsed softly, like a heartbeat in the dark. Ren sat down beside her, his decision already made. He would not let the crew know. He would not hand her over to buyers or rulers who cared only for power. He would keep her safe, no matter what it cost. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the window, but Ren no longer felt small before them. For the first time, he felt as though humanity had been called to something greater. And he was the one who had answered. The Silver Wing drifted through deep space like a lone spark against the black. For Ren, the ship felt smaller than ever. The medical bay held a secret too large for its walls. The alien girl slept quietly on the cot, her collar glowing with a steady light. Ren had translated only part of the script, but already he knew the weight of it. She was more than a survivor. She was the keeper of her people's last voice. Ren sat by her side, guarding her, when the ship's alarm broke the silence. A sharp tone echoed through the halls. The comm system lit up with Bran's voice. Captain on deck. Unknown vessels detected. Everyone to stations. Ren stiffened. He hurried to the bridge. The rest of the crew were already gathered, eyes on the forward screen. Outside, against the stars, several ships had appeared. Their dark hulls glinted in the light of a distant sun. Bran crossed his arms. Not pirates. Too organized. Ren scanned the readings. His chest tightened. The ships belonged to different species, yet they traveled together. Their weapons were armed, though not yet aimed. He recognized markings from at least 3 factions. All of them were older and stronger than humanity. They followed us, Ren said under his breath. Bran turned. What was that? Ren shook his head quickly. Nothing. Just surprised to see them working together. The comm system crackled. A cold voice filled the bridge. Salvage ship Silver Wing. You are ordered to stop engines and prepare for boarding. You have taken something that does not belong to you. Bran cursed under his breath. He opened the COMM. This is Bran of the Silver Wing. We are a simple salvage crew. We took nothing of value. Just scrap. The reply came at once. Do not lie. The moon you entered is forbidden. You carry what should not exist. Hand it over, and you may leave alive. Ren's blood ran cold. They knew. Somehow, they knew about the girl. Bran looked around at his crew, suspicion already forming in his eyes. Did anyone bring back more than they said? The room fell silent. Ren kept his face steady, though his heart pounded. He could not let them know. Outside, the ships moved closer, circling like predators. Bran gritted his teeth. They will tear us apart if we refuse. If someone brought back something important, speak now. Ren forced himself to stay calm. He knew if he told the truth, the girl would be taken. She would vanish into the hands of strangers who saw her as nothing more than a tool. He could not allow it. I brought back nothing, Ren said firmly. The crew shook their heads as well. Bran cursed again and slammed his fist against the console. Then they are bluffing. He opened the COMM. We told you, we took nothing. The cold voice replied, sharper now. You have one final chance. Deliver the child with the collar. Or we take her by force. The bridge went silent. Every crew member turned to Ren. Bran's eyes narrowed. Ren. What is this about? Ren's chest tightened. He could not lie anymore. Slowly, he said, I found her in the ruins. She was starving. I could not leave her. Bran stepped closer. You brought an unknown alien onto this ship without telling us. His voice was low with anger. Ren held his ground. She is not salvage. She is alive. She is a child. Bran shook his head. You fool. Do you understand what you have done? These factions fear that race. They will kill us all just to erase her. Ren clenched his fists. Then we fight. The crew murmured in shock. Bran stared at him as if he had lost his mind. Fight? Against 3 fleets? We are a salvage ship, not a warship. Ren pointed toward the medical bay. That girl carries the memory of her people. If we give her up, they will silence her forever. Humanity has always survived by standing against greater powers. We cannot turn her over. Bran looked at him for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he turned back to the screen. This is madness, he muttered. Outside, the ships closed in. Their weapons charged, glowing faintly. The Silver Wing shuddered as a warning shot passed nearby. Ren hurried back to the medical bay. The girl was sitting upright now, her eyes wide with fear. She had heard the alarms. She clutched the collar tightly. Ren knelt beside her. "They know you are here," he said softly. "They want to take you. But I will not let them." She reached out, gripping his sleeve with trembling fingers. Her silent gaze held both fear and trust. The ship jolted again. Bran's voice came over the COMM. "Ren, get back to the bridge. They are preparing to board." Ren looked at the girl. "Stay hidden. I will protect you." He covered her with the blanket, dimmed the lights, and hurried back to the bridge. The forward screen showed the enemy ships now only a few kilometers away. Docking clamps extended from their hulls. Bran turned to Ren. "You brought this on us. If you are so determined to keep her, then you better have a plan." Ren looked at the controls. The Silver Wing was old, but it still had one strength. Its engines were powerful, built to escape collapsing ruins. He tightened his grip on the console. "We run." Bran's eyes widened. "Through 3 fleets?" Ren nodded. "They are not allies. They are rivals. If we move fast, they will fight each other for the right to chase us. That is our chance." For a long moment, Bran hesitated. Then he swore and slammed his hand down. "Fine. Do it." Ren threw the engines to full power. The Silver Wing roared forward, slipping between the first pair of ships. Alarms screamed as weapons fired, but the beams struck the other fleets instead. In seconds, chaos erupted. The factions turned on one another, suspicion and greed breaking their fragile alliance. The Silver Wing darted through the storm, shields flashing under near hits. Ren held the controls steady, heart pounding, every muscle tense. At last, the stars opened before them. The enemy fleets were locked in battle behind. The crew cheered with relief, but Bran only shook his head. He looked at Ren. "You just made us the most hunted ship in this sector." Ren met his gaze. "So be it. We will not hand her over." In the medical bay, the girl sat with her hands pressed over the collar. She had felt the ship shake, had seen fear in Ren's eyes, but she also felt his promise. She closed her eyes, and though she could not speak, she whispered her trust in silence. Ren returned to her side once the ship was steady. He knelt and said quietly, "The galaxy wants to erase you. But they will have to go through me first." The collar glowed brighter for a moment, as if answering. Ren knew this was only the beginning. The shadows had gathered, and they would not stop. But humanity had faced shadows before. And this time, he would not let them win. The Silver Wing sailed into the dark stretches of space, engines still hot from the escape. Behind them, the fleets fought one another, their weapons flashing like storms of fire. The salvage ship was scarred but intact. Inside, the crew moved quickly to repair damaged panels and reset the navigation system. Ren sat once again in the medical bay, watching over the alien girl. She had not slept since the attack. Her wide silver eyes followed every movement of the ship, as if she feared the enemy would appear at any moment. The faint glow of her collar had grown stronger, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ren crouched beside her. "We are safe for now," he said softly. His voice was steady, though inside he still felt the tremors of their escape. "But they will not stop. They know you are alive, and they know what you carry." The girl touched the collar. Her lips moved in silence. She pointed to him, then to the symbols etched into the glowing band. Ren understood. She wanted him to read again. He powered on the projector, letting the script spill into the air. The room filled with the flowing marks, glowing gently like strands of light. Ren began to sound them out, one by one, shaping the words as best he could. His voice trembled but grew stronger as he spoke. The message unfolded further. The collar was not only a record of history but also a guide. It spoke of a great chamber hidden deep within the ruins of their lost cities. Only those who could awaken the collar could open it. Inside, it promised knowledge, memory, and the truth of why their voices had been silenced. Ren paused, his breath catching. The collar was leading them somewhere. It was not just a relic. It was a key. The girl leaned forward, her eyes shining with tears. She pressed her hand against his chest as if urging him not to stop. Ren read on. The words described the builders of the collar. They had known their time was ending. They had left behind guardians of memory, children who would carry fragments of their truth. They had written the script in a way only one kind of mind would see clearly, a human mind. Ren froze at the line. His throat tightened. The builders had predicted humanity. They had trusted humans would one day walk among the stars and find their lost children. He looked at the girl. She watched him with desperate hope. He felt his eyes sting. He was not only reading her people's story. He was living it. Before he could speak, the comm system blared. Bran's voice filled the bay. Ren, report to the bridge. Now. Ren rose quickly. He placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. Stay here. I will return. When he reached the bridge, Bran was pacing before the screen. A dozen ships had appeared at the edge of the sensors. They were not fighting like the fleets before. They were gathered together, waiting. Bran's face was grim. They know we escaped. They are hunting us as one. We cannot outrun them forever. Ren studied the readings. The enemy ships were holding position, not attacking yet. They are waiting for us to surrender. Bran turned to him. And maybe we should. This is bigger than us, Ren. We are a salvage crew, not soldiers. We cannot protect her against the whole galaxy. Ren shook his head. If we surrender her, they will erase everything. Her people will vanish forever. We are the only ones who can keep her voice alive. Bran's jaw tightened. You keep saying her voice, but she does not speak. How can you be so sure? Ren met his eyes. Because I heard it. Not with my ears, but in her collar, in her story. She carries a voice louder than any of us. The bridge fell silent. The crew shifted uneasily, torn between fear and duty. Ren spoke again. Humanity has always been underestimated. We were called reckless, weak, impatient. Yet we survive where others do not. That is why the collar answers us. It was waiting for us. Bran looked at him for a long moment. Then he sighed heavily. You had better be right. Ren returned to the medical bay. The girl was waiting, her eyes full of questions. He sat beside her and spoke quietly. They are gathering outside. They want us to give you up. But I will not. Your people trusted us. I will not break that trust. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She reached out, gripping his hand tightly. Then the collar flared with light. Ren blinked in surprise. The symbols rose into the air again, but this time they shifted on their own, flowing into patterns he had not seen before. A soft sound filled the room, not words exactly, but tones like music. The girl sat straighter, her lips moving in silence, and the caller carried her intent into the air. The sounds grew stronger, forming into words that Ren could understand. A voice spoke. It was not her own, but it carried her spirit. We are not gone. We are not silent. Through you, we will speak again. Ren felt his heart twist. The girl's eyes filled with tears as she listened to the caller give shape to her silence. She pressed his hand to her chest, and he felt the steady beat of her heart. The voice continued. It spoke of hope, of memory, of trust placed in those who would not turn away. It spoke of a flame carried through darkness, waiting for someone to keep it alive. Ren's own eyes filled with tears. For the first time, he heard her, not just as symbols on a collar but as a voice in the room. She was no longer mute. Her silence had become sound. He whispered back, his voice shaking. I hear you. The collar pulsed once more and then dimmed, but the meaning remained. The girl smiled faintly, her first true smile since he had found her. Ren sat beside her long after the light faded. Outside, the enemy ships still waited, shadows pressing close. But inside the medical bay, a new strength had awakened. The girl had found her voice through him. And he knew he would never let it be silenced again. The bridge of the Silver Wing was filled with tension. The crew stared at the forward screen where the enemy ships hovered like hunters circling prey. Their weapons were charged but silent, as if they were waiting for the humans to surrender. Ren stood at the edge of the screen, his mind replaying what had just happened in the medical bay. For the first time, the alien girl's silence had become a voice through the collar. It had not been her own speech, but it had been her soul speaking, carried across time by the memory of her people. That voice had trusted him. He turned to Bran. We cannot hand her over. If we do, her people's last hope will be destroyed. Bran rubbed his face, his shoulders heavy with worry. Ren, look at the screen. Do you see how many ships are out there? They will crush us in seconds. You are asking me to risk every life on this ship for one girl. Ren's voice was steady. She is not just one girl. She carries the story of a people who were silenced. If we give her up, we are helping the silence win. The crew whispered among themselves. Fear hung thick in the air, but some of them looked at Ren with something else in their eyes. Respect. The comm system crackled again. The cold voice of the enemy filled the bridge. This is your final warning. Deliver the child and you may live. Refuse, and you will be erased. Ren felt his chest tighten. He thought of the words the caller had revealed. We are not gone. We are not silent. Through you, we will speak again. His throat grew dry. He had to show them. He hurried to the medical bay. The girl looked up as he entered, her silver eyes wide with fear. The collar still glowed faintly, as if waiting for him. Ren knelt beside her. They are demanding you. But I will not let them take you. I need your help now. I need your story to be heard. She tilted her head, uncertain, but then she touched the collar and pressed it against his hand. The light grew brighter. The script flowed into the air again, glowing in lines and arcs. Ren read aloud, his voice shaking at first but growing steadier. The words carried sorrow, but also strength. They spoke of a people who had once thrived across many worlds, a people with voices that carried both music and wisdom. They had shared freely with others, believing kindness was stronger than fear. But their openness had been seen as weakness. Stronger races had turned against them, afraid of their unity and their songs. They had been hunted, scattered, and silenced. Ren's voice broke as he continued. The message told of families torn apart, of cities burned until nothing but dust remained. The collar carried the last fragments of their memory, entrusted to the children who survived. Those children were meant to wander until someone who could hear them appeared. Someone who could keep their voice alive. Ren stopped reading for a moment, his eyes stinging. The girl reached out and touched his face gently, her expression calm even through her tears. She was telling him without words to go on. Ren, read the last lines. To the one who finds us. To the one who reads these words. You are the keeper of our voice now. Do not let us fade. Speak for us. Remember us. Carry us forward. His vision blurred. His voice cracked on the final words. His eyes filled with tears, not only from the pain of the story but from recognition. Humanity had known this same struggle. Earth's history was filled with peoples who had been silenced, who had been hunted or erased. Yet their voices had survived through memory, through words, through those who refused to let them be forgotten. Ren lowered the collar, unable to speak further. His tears fell freely. For a moment he could not breathe, overwhelmed by the weight of what he had read. The girl reached forward, her own tears shining. She placed her small hand over his heart and held it there. Though she had no spoken voice, her meaning was clear. She trusted him. She was giving her people's story to him. Ren whispered, his voice trembling. I will not fail you. At that moment, Bren and 2 crew members entered the bay. They had heard enough of his reading to understand. Bren stopped, his face pale. He looked at the glowing script in the air, then at Ren's tear-streaked face. That story, Bren said quietly. It is not just about them. It could be about us. Ren nodded. Exactly. That is why we cannot surrender her. Her story is our story too. If we let them silence her, we let them silence what makes us human. For a long moment, Bran said nothing. Then he drew a deep breath. You are right. He turned to the crew. Prepare the ship. We are not surrendering. The crew exchanged uneasy looks, but Bran's voice carried authority. They scattered to their stations. Ren stood and wiped his eyes. The girl clutched his sleeve as if afraid he might leave her. He gave her a reassuring nod. Stay strong. We are with you now. On the bridge, the enemy ships grew restless. The cold voice returned. You refuse. Then you will die with her. Bran smirked grimly. Let them try. Ren sat beside him, still shaken but filled with new strength. He knew they might not win the battle ahead. But he also knew something more important. They had already given her people back a voice. They had refused to let the silence win. The enemy ships closed in, weapons flaring. The silver wing shook as the first shot struck its shields. Alarms screamed, panels sparked, and the crew braced themselves. Ren gripped the controls, his heart pounding. Hold steady, he said through clenched teeth. They will fight each other again. They cannot share what they want. As if on cue, 2 of the enemy ships fired too close to each other. Suspicion spread like fire. Within moments, their alliance broke once more. Explosions lit the darkness as the factions turned on each other, desperate not to let rivals claim the prize. The silver wing darted through the chaos, battered but alive. Ren's hands were steady on the controls, his tears drying into resolve. Behind them, the fleets tore at one another. Ahead, the stars stretched wide and empty, waiting. In the medical bay, the girl held her collar close, its glow soft and steady. She did not need to speak. Ren had heard her voice, and through him, humanity had heard it too. And as long as he lived, he would never let it fade. The Silver Wing drifted into the quiet after the storm. Behind them, distant flashes marked where the enemy fleets still tore each other apart, their fragile alliance shattered. Ahead stretched the dark path of space, endless and unknown. The ship was battered, its shields burned, its hull scarred, but it was alive. Inside, the crew moved like weary survivors. They patched broken panels, reset damaged systems, and whispered about what they had seen and heard. None of them could forget the words Ren had spoken from the collar. None could forget the tears in his eyes or the way the alien girl's silence had turned into a voice that carried across their hearts. Ren sat quietly in the medical bay. The girl lay on the cot, her eyes half closed but still watchful. The collar pulsed with a gentle glow, steady now, no longer trembling with pain. She looked at him with calm trust, as if she knew he would not leave her. Bran entered the room, his usual stern face softened. He stood by the door for a long moment before speaking. "We should talk about what happens next." Ren looked up. "Next?" Bran nodded. "We cannot keep running forever. Every faction will keep searching for us. They know what she is. They know what she carries. Sooner or later, they will corner us." Ren stroked his chin, his mind heavy with thought. "Then we need to find the chamber her collar spoke of. The place her people left behind. It may hold answers. Maybe even a way to protect her." Bran crossed his arms. "That is a dangerous path. But after what I heard in her message, I cannot deny it. If there is something waiting for us, then we should see it through." The girl stirred, opening her eyes wider. She looked between them, then touched the collar. The light brightened and symbols rose again. Ren read them aloud. The words described a star system hidden far from common trade routes, a place where her people's last sanctuary might still exist. Ren's voice steadied as he finished. "That is where we go." Bran exhaled slowly. "Then that is our course." The days that followed were long but filled with a quiet sense of purpose. The Silver Wing traveled through unmarked regions of space, avoiding patrols, hiding from passing fleets. The girl remained close to Ren, rarely letting him out of sight. She still could not speak with her own voice, but her collar often glowed with faint sounds or fragments of her people's memory, as if reminding him that she was never truly silent. During the quiet hours, Ren told her stories. He spoke of Earth, of humanity's own long struggle. He told her how humans had once been divided, how many voices had been nearly silenced, but how stories and memories had survived through those who carried them. Her eyes glistened when she listened. It was as if she understood that his people had walked a similar path. At last, the ship reached the coordinates given by the collar. Before them hung a lonely world orbiting a pale star. Its surface was cracked, scarred by old battles, but still whole. Orbiting above it was a structure vast, circular, glowing faintly even after centuries. The crew gasped as the image filled the screen. It was a vault, a guardian station left behind by her people. Ren felt his heart pound. "This is it?" The Silver Wing approached carefully. As they drew near, the girl's collar glowed so bright it filled the bay with light. Symbols danced across the walls, and the great station stirred to life. Doors opened, lights flickered awake, as if recognizing her presence. Bran guided the ship into the docking bay. The moment they landed, Ren rose, taking the girl's hand gently. "Come. This place is waiting for you." Together they walked through silent halls. The walls were etched with the same script as her collar, though worn and faded. The girl touched the markings as they passed, her eyes shining with wonder. At the heart of the station, they found a chamber filled with crystal pillars. When the girl stepped inside, the collar released a surge of light. The crystals answered, glowing one by one, filling the chamber with warmth. Ren stared in awe. "It is their memory," he whispered. "This whole place is a library of voices." The light grew stronger, and for the first time, the girl's silent lips moved and the collar carried her voice clearly into the chamber. Her people spoke through her, thousands of voices layered together, telling their stories, singing their songs, sharing their hopes. Tears streamed down Ren's face. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the beauty and sorrow of it. He was not just hearing history. He was hearing lives that had once been real, voices that had once filled homes, laughter that had once filled skies. They had trusted him to carry it forward. The girl turned to him, her eyes bright with tears, and in that moment he understood. She was no longer alone. She had given her people's voice to humanity, and humanity had accepted it. Bran stepped into the chamber and stood beside Ren. His stern face softened. "We came here thinking we were salvagers," he said quietly. "But this is more than salvage. This is inheritance." Ren nodded, wiping his tears. "We are the keepers now. Their voices live because we hear them." The girl walked closer and placed her small hand on Ren's chest. The collar glowed warmly, not just with memory but with gratitude. When they returned to the ship, the crew was silent, still moved by what they had witnessed. The Silver Wing lifted from the station, carrying with it not only the girl but also the legacy of her people. The galaxy would still hunt them. Factions would still fight to silence what she carried. But now the humans knew the truth. They were not only protectors of one child. They were guardians of a voice that refused to die. As the stars stretched before them, Ren sat beside the girl. She leaned against him, her collar glowing softly, her silence now filled with meaning. Ren whispered, "You are not alone anymore. Your voice is our voice. Your story is our story. Together we will carry it." And as the Silver Wing vanished into the horizon of stars, a new bond was born. Humanity had been underestimated by the galaxy, seen as reckless and small. But now, they carried the inheritance of hope. They carried the voices of the silenced. And they would not let them fade.